What's up, everyone? This is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I interview my good buddy, Aaron Hinde, owner of FitAid. We talk about how he went from living in I think he said 400 square foot apartment, no electricity, using ice chests as refrigerators, to starting and maintaining a very successful chiropractor business. And then now he is on a multi-million dollar beverage company, which is FitAid. He talks a lot about his leadership, how he creates raving fans and customers, as well as gives a lot of tactical, practical advice for your business. If you have a chance before we get started and you like this podcast, go to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review. I'd really appreciate it. Enjoy the show. What's up, everyone? This is Mike Casu. You're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I'm here with my good buddy, Aaron Hinde. Aaron, thanks for making some time for me, brother.
Mike, stoked to be on the show, man.
So you just got back from Burning Man, and I feel like that's a kind of a fun place to start. Why do you go to events like that? You know, some people think it's absolute insanity and it's just nothing but a big party. I'm sure you go a lot for the party, but what other reasons are you going to those kinds of things for?
Well, I mean, most people out there have an opinion on Burning Man, and I think unless you've actually gone and experienced it, there's just no way for you to even comprehend what it's all about. There's so many mover and shakers, first of all, that kind of congregate in Black Rock City and on the playa. You never know who you're going to run into. So just the energy there, the amount of artists and musicians and people of all walks of life, all really getting together under kind of a paradigm very different than what we experience in our day-to-day. This kind of gifting culture, not even a trading culture, a gifting culture with no expectation of return, no trash, no litter anywhere. Everyone's responsibility to totally pick up 100%, leave it as you found it. I mean, there's just incredible principles that could be taken back and are hopefully having a positive influence on, people all around us on a day-to-day basis.
Right. What's the biggest thing you took away from Burning Man this year?
Oh, my biggest takeaway this year. My biggest takeaway this year was being, open and more vulnerable in my relationships. I've always been kind of a tough nut to crack, a lot of people say, and just kind of like, I'll do it myself type of attitude, and not, and just putting all the weight on my own shoulders. And I think that's been challenging and at times with the relationship with my wife or my business partner or friends, and, just allowing myself to open up. And I think, I was an emotional kid. I was, a skinny little, I was 101 pounds when I got my license to drive a car, and so I was just always, didn't have that confidence. And I think part of it, when I started growing and getting more confident, that there's still that little kid inside of me, and I like to shut him up and not let him kind of express and open up and be vulnerable. So that was,
right.
That was my big takeaway this year from the burn.
Hell yeah, man! I think that's something that every single human being has experienced and will continue to experience for their entire lives. Right? We're always there's always room to be more vulnerable. Right, and not being so stunts our growth in so many areas and keeps us from developing and keeping, deep, meaningful relationships. So that's awesome to hear that you experienced that, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you go to a place like that, and the kindness that's everywhere, and and being opening yourself up to receive, because in this gifting economy, you're constantly being given stuff from cool things that people make, necklaces and art and jewelry and beauty. I mean, it's just incredible. So you have to open yourself to actually be able to receive as well as contribute and give.
Absolutely. So you're known in the CrossFit community as one of the owners of FitAid. But it's what's really interesting is that you owned a very successful business before that. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what you were doing and a little bit of your day-to-day life before FitAid?
Yeah, so I owned a sports chiropractic clinic in Santa Cruz County, specifically Scotts Valley. Scotts Valley is where CrossFit HQ, the whole media team's based. So opened up there, had a great practice. Was just really good at what I did from a technician standpoint, and I started learning some marketing, and started treating some of the higher ups from HQ and some of the athletes when they were in town, and then they kind of told me about this thing called CrossFit, and I'd grown up in the Globo gyms and was a personal trainer, and the whole 24-hour Gold's Gym, World's Gym. I've been members at all of them. Mm-hmm. And once I got into CrossFit, and it just totally kicked my ass. I'm like, all right, let me work on a few things here, and it just really got me immersed in that culture, and that's where I met Orion, my business partner.
Right. So you had, I'm sure, hundreds of hours of CrossFitters on your table. What did you learn about them as people and as athletes through all of that experience?
Well, I mean, just from someone that was totally on the outside, looking in, when they would show up, I was always in awe, because I would see people of all age groups, from probably early 20s competitive athletes, into 40s and 50s at the time, and like to see a 45-year-old when I was probably, I don't know, late 20s, in that kind of shape was just incredible. I had never seen anything like that outside of maybe peak guys training for a professional bodybuilding show or something. So the physique was always amazing to me. And then there was a lot of common injuries, common things that I think have been brought to the light by people like, Kelly, who I think you've had on the show, and others around just mobility and really working on, specifically for me, I'd see a lot of shoulder issues, a lot of rotator cuff issues, and a lot of low back problems as well. So, really working on those things. And Ramwad, I know, is a great company that's really bringing light to kind of the importance of stretching and mobility.
Absolutely. We work with Active Life RX as well, and they have a very holistic approach to the whole thing. I'm curious, do you have any, and did you at the time have any advice for gym owners that wanted to keep their members healthier? Because it's one thing to fix people when they're broke, but another to prevent those injuries from happening, and which you can have a much bigger impact that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I was big on, I think even before it got popular, which probably every CrossFitter owns a foam roller now, but 15 years ago or whenever it was, about 15 years ago, that not everyone had that. Most people didn't even know what they were. So, just really working the home care with foam rollers and lacrosse balls, and using leverage and door jams, and stretching, hitting yoga classes, really important there. The importance of kind of your pre-routine and post-routine. So bringing, light to the whole warm-up process and getting the body, a little lubricated and warmed up. And then what you do after you finish training, and focusing on, some more stretching and staying hydrated and recovering.
So I'm gonna throw this out there, and this is kind of a little just anecdotal. There's been an increased talk about not bands, foam rollers and balls and stuff like that, kind of being like putting a Band-Aid on the situation without really addressing the issue as a whole. And from my experience, I can actually relate to that a little bit. And if I would really stay after it, and I would do 20 to 40 minutes a day of different soft tissue work, like soft tissue work like that, I would definitely feel a lot of relief that day. But if I was training hard continuously, I never felt like I was making a whole lot of ground. So A, what is your take on that? And B, how can people go even a step further?
Yeah, and I think you're accurate, especially when you're talking about elite athletes that are constantly, on a daily basis pushing their body to those extremes. Sometimes you need a band-aid to kind of get through if you're competing. There's nothing wrong with palliative care, which is just having the body feel better. But ultimately, you're correct. You got to get at what the root cause of the issues are. And, was that, old trauma? Is even looking at emotional trauma, are people holding stress that's manifesting, like a somato, I'm sorry, a psychosomatic response where, chronic stress in their life is manifesting itself in the body. There's no, stretch or foam roll or adjustment or
Right.
lift that's going to permanently take care of that. But if there is existing trauma and scar tissue that's altering the mechanics of the body and how it's functioning, you got to go in and be, laser focused on correcting that issue. I was big with like active release technique, ART, kind of Gonstead adjusting, very specific adjusting, using some cool therapies, some like cold laser and E-stim and different types of traction and decompression. But I've been out of the game, as you know, for a little while now, about 5 years now, and more focusing on the sales and marketing aspect, and really helping fellow chiropractors, helping out box owners and around that aspect of the business. Now I think in today's day and age, as you know, and being a coach, if you're not excellent at being at the technical aspect of what you do, you're not going to last very long. That's got to be a given. That's got to
Right.
be a given with Yelp and all the review sites and social media. Where most people are lacking is kind of on the business front. People that are passionate and very good at what they
Right.
do.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll throw my 2 cents in there for those that are interested. I think, if you have significant mobility or movement pattern issues, right? You can't seem to move correctly and you don't know why. When you're seeking out someone to work with, so first off, it's very hard to self-assess and deal with that kind of situation all on your own. A lot of times it really helps to have an expert. And when you're seeking out an expert, if that person doesn't talk to you in terms of how the entire body is connected and moving, you're probably not working with the best person around. Usually, the best of the best are they're gonna take lots of different things into account. Like Aaron was saying, how is your stress outside of training like? What prior injuries do you have? All of that kind of stuff actually plays a huge role in the way that you move, the way that your fascia moves and is connected, etc. So be very cognizant of how those people are talking to you when they're assessing you.
And the
Um,
quality of the referral network. As a practitioner with my skill set, sometimes I could bring people all the way home. Sometimes I bring them part of the way. Sometimes they weren't the right fit at all. But I had such a great referral network of PTs, acupuncturists, orthopedic surgeons, a great neurologist friend of mine, where I knew that I could send people that something wasn't right, or I knew that okay, we're kind of hitting a plateau here, or I need further diagnostic testing. Having a good referral network, someone who's like, oh, I can fix everything and I'm the answer to everything, that's I'm always a little gun shy about that. Like, usually everybody's body is so dynamic and so different. There's multiple things that need to be incorporated to get true healing.
right. I love that. So here you are. You have this very successful chiropractor business, and it's typically a very fulfilling job, as I'm told. Why switch from something like that to something that is seemingly a lot more risky, a beverage business?
Not seemingly, Mike. It's so risky that when I look back at that decision, I'm like, we're freaking out of your mind. I mean, I get emotional to think about it because I think about the risk that, look, I can bounce back, no problem. I'm a resilient guy. That, the risk that I put my family, my wife and my two kids under. I mean, we lived in 400 square feet with no electricity, for 400 square feet for years, for 5 years, and no electricity for months, living out a little coolers and heating water on the stove, like
No
old school,
shit.
to make a bath. I mean, yeah, I mean, and those were great times, but I was making big money and had a very low stress life and job and great referrals. I was getting probably 31 new patients every month, all by referral. I didn't have to market. I didn't have to do a lot of things. It was just I took kind of for granted, but I was spending so much money and things were going. And then when this opportunity came, and I just basically very naively and stupidly go, oh, well, we're going to create the next $1 billion beverage brand. So I can't kind of serve two masters, so I got to divest myself over here and then push it all in over here. It was a major risk, and then going without income for a couple years, and then slowly, like, okay, now I make $1,000 a month, and oh, I make $3,000 a month, and slowly being able to creep that up over time. But it was an interesting, challenging, fun, scary time, and I don't know if I would take that same risk knowing what I know now, but thank God it's working out.
So, I mean, again, you went from quote unquote rags to riches going into that chiropractor business. What was it that really drove you to take that big risk? Why?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I always had this feeling like I'm going to do something big. And I know a lot of people have that kind of feeling, but I knew it was going to be something that was going to be health related and have a positive impact on people's lives, but something on a massive scale. And when I was a chiropractor, even on a busy day, it's like, okay, I worked 10 hours a day and I saw, 40 people. Well, you know, how many people can I really affect in a lifetime? So part of it was my aspirations were kind of thinking on a bigger level, and I was always entrepreneurial. I mean, I had an eye drop company for stoners, but before LifeAid, and I had a barbecue accessory company. I mean, my mind has always been working
No
on
shit.
different stuff, and I learned things from each of my quote unquote failures. Each of my entrepreneurial things that didn't make it, or were making a little money but not enough to really do anything with. And it's like I have one major takeaway from each of those stages of my life, and if I didn't go through that, we wouldn't have the traction that we have now. So I think for people that are listening, regardless of where you're at in life, and if you're exactly where you need to be right at this second, you have to have complete faith and confidence in that.
I love that. And I love what you said, that a lot of people have that notion that one day I'm going to do something big, right? We feel this huge desire to do something very meaningful to a lot of people. And what separates you is that you took that fucking huge leap. It's not easy for anybody to do that kind of thing. And you just chose to take that leap. A lot of people just let that fear grip them, and they stay inside of their comfort zone, and that's what keeps a lot of these big dreams and ideas from actualizing.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if you're young and you're not, hopefully you don't hold a lot of debt. Like I held huge debt after chiropractic college, $200,000 in student loans that, thank God, I just paid off about a month ago. But if you don't have heavy responsibilities and big debt, take risks, take chances. I mean, now is the time. Time is our most precious commodity, and when you have someone on your side, don't be afraid to push all in once in a while. And if you're just totally risk averse, go bungee jumping, jump out of an airplane, do something that's out of your comfort zone. You go, okay, I survived that.
Right.
It was scary as hell, but I survived. I'm here safe on the ground. And those kind of exercises, I think, will get us a little bit more accustomed to, taking calculated risks. We don't want to be reckless. That's not what it's all about.
Right.
But taking calculated risks, I mean, who better to bet on yourself? I mean, it's so funny. People have these portfolios and they're investing their whole life savings in these companies that they literally know nothing about. They have no intimate knowledge of what's going on the inner workings outside of maybe investing in your own company where you work. So they have no problem putting all of their retirement and faith into these companies, yet they won't would the one thing they could control, which is themselves and their own actions, they're not
Right.
investing in themselves. Well, why not put that same money into you and have confidence in leading your own destiny?
Right. At that first mastermind, barbell shrug mastermind we were at in a couple years ago, we talked a lot about the power of thinking big. Why is that? And you started to talk about that just now. Why is that so important to, prospective business owners, entrepreneurs, as well as just people in general that want to do something with their lives?
Well, I think the power of, we have a choice always in life. We can think big or we can think small. I mean, it, part of it was my programming. I think of like all the little sayings that my dad programmed me with, and he would always say like the sky's the limit, like basically press, you're only limiting yourself, just, look to the stars type of thing and go for it. And so I think a lot of it has to do with our programming. And if you weren't programmed in an abundance mindset and thinking big, you got to just, part of it is just recognizing that in your own mind, because the repetitive thoughts of our mind can poison us, and recognize, oh, there it is again. There's some of that programming. And just
Right.
going through that exercise will allow you today, at this moment, right now, to start thinking bigger. And when you start thinking bigger, you start acting bigger. And when you start
Right.
acting bigger, bigger shit happens, right? So it's pretty cool stuff.
I love that. Um, so now that you've got this enormous drink company, I know you get a ton of opportunities coming at you from every different direction. How do you filter what opportunities you take and follow through with, and which ones, and how do you know which ones to say no to?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge as people on, especially entrepreneurial types, start to scale their business, because when we first started, I was sales, I was marketing, I was production, I was logistics, I was the warehouse guy, and I was the trash picker upper. I mean, I literally did every aspect that you can do. And letting go of some of that ownership and allowing yourself to scale means that you need to start saying yes, yes to hiring the right people. You need to start saying yes to letting things go. And then as you grow, you have to start saying no a lot more too, like
Right.
no to every shiny object and opportunity that is out there, because the ADD mind is very attracted to shiny objects. And like it's funny if you talk to like successful investor types that really have their shit together, just well-rounded, cool people. They always will tell you about like big investments that they passed on and stuff, and none of them have like buyer or I guess lack of buyer's remorse or whatever you'd call it. They're like, well, yeah, I missed that one, but there's another opportunity around the corner. You can't be addicted to the next thing and the next thing. I mean, part of it is you have to protect our most limited resource, which is time, and really focus on your unique ability, focus on where you're providing the most value, and not try to be everything to everyone.
Right. I think you know, and I speak from experience, having gone through this just in the past couple years, is it's tempting to want to make some quick cash, right, with some new opportunity, uh, and all the while that just leads to you taking your focus off of your purpose, your most important thing, what you set out to do in the first place. And I think if CrossFit gym owners and others in the community would just have a little more focus and say no to a few more things, their quality would go through the roof.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, focus is key, and if you try to spread yourself too thin, then you start to sacrifice quality, which is never a good thing.
Right. So have you ever felt any, and you can apply this to any of your businesses, have you ever felt any like significant fear of failure? And the reason I'm asking is I was having I was having a conversation with a gym owner recently who he lost a shitload, like 60, 70 members over the summer. And most of those were like college kids, and then maybe a few people that just wanted to like get outdoors more during the summer. And I think this happens to a lot of gym owners. So have you felt that? So what he said is, he was shitting his pants. He didn't know if they were going to make it, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious if you've ever felt that kind of fear of maybe losing your business, or, is what you're doing significant enough or whatever? And then if so, what do you do? Like, what do you think and what do you do in those tough times?
Every day, brother. Every day.
Amen.
I mean, fear of failure is, it's always in the back of my mind. There's always little demons that are talking, saying, "Well, you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you can't pull this off," or uh, what do you do about it? You recognize it and you laugh at it and you go, "F you, head mind." You can't tell me what to do. I'm in control. You're not in control, and you got to have. So I think that's the first step for people is to recognize it. I mean, for me personally, look, I've already lost everything. I've lost everything twice in my life. I bet big on the stock market when it tanked. I bet big in housing at peak market, and it tanked, which actually caused me to go completely under. I went bankrupt. Most people don't know that, but in 2009, I was so overextended. I was, as a sole practitioner, I was making $50,000 a month, but I had $70,000 a month in outflow because
Holy fuck.
I thought I was a real estate investor, and I knew nothing about real estate. I was completely an idiot. But I learned a lot. I learned about the power of actually having money in your hand and not being over leveraged. I learned the power of being debt free, which I could say today I am completely debt free. I've paid off
Congrats, man.
I don't owe anybody anything, right?
Right.
So I've kind of gone through that and hit the rock bottom and go dusting myself off. I go, well, look, my old lady's still here. She still loves me. My kids still love me. My practice didn't skip a beat. It did literally like the next day. I mean, people were still coming in. People were still referring. And I was like, okay, I've made bad decisions. I've ended myself up here. I was inaccurate in my thinking, but I'm still alive. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to persevere. And so when those thoughts come up, you got to recognize them and you go, you know what? No, I'm not the same person as I was 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years ago. I've learned a lot since then. I've gotten some bumps and bruises and scrapes, but I pick myself up and go, okay, those will heal. And that's the key. I think you got to learn from that stuff, and not repeat the same cycles over and over again. And that's unfortunate when you see people, going down those same rabbit holes, and you're like, dude, come on, you can't expect a different result.
Right, right. God damn, man. That's an awesome perspective. I love it. Going back to, not going back to, I don't know what I'm talking about. What would you say your style of leadership is within your organization?
Oh, constantly evolving. I mentioned earlier I'm trying to open up a little bit more with people, which I think people resonate with. I try to be very Socratic in my approach to leadership at our company, meaning I may have a conclusion, and it would be easy for me to go around and bark orders and say this is the way it should be done, and I'm right, and screw everybody. But that's not an effective way to lead, even though it may be the right thing, right? You have to be Socratic. You have to ask the right questions so that people come to their own conclusions, would happen to be the right conclusion that you were kind of thinking of the whole time. But it needs to originate from your team. So, I think having that Socratic approach is a powerful approach to leadership. Being friendly and caring, but not kind of best buddy type of thing, where that you still have to have some authority. It's like you don't want to be best buddies with your kids. You want to have a loving and open relationship with your kids, but you don't you're not their best friend, if that makes sense. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of the traditional way of running a business where, you know, there's a boss barking orders and stuff like that is just a recipe to turn, you know, quote unquote A players into underperformers. Like when you take away someone's autonomy by just telling them what to do all the time, it doesn't matter how special they are, they're going to kind of stoop to that level, right? Where
Yeah.
they rely on you telling them what to do, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The last thing you want to do is, demotivate your team, and having kind of that fire in the belly is probably more important than any skill set. I mean, there's basically any skill set out there you could teach someone. I could teach someone how to sell. I could teach them how to market. I could teach them how to do customer service, logistics, anything you can teach, right? But you can't teach having that fire in the belly, the belief in the brand, the belief in the overall mission, the faith that we're changing lives, and so you don't want to put that fire out. So kindling that, and then focusing people on what their unique abilities are, not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Right. I don't know why this is exactly. Maybe it's just sheer laziness, but I've never had a real tough time delegating and letting people kind of do their own thing. I guess I don't really have that perfection gene, but whenever I started to hand off things like customer service and operational type stuff, we started to grow really, really quickly. When people could just make those kinds of things their own, they ended up doing 10 times better of a job because those are things that they wanted to do. Those are not things that I'm good at or want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like classic kind of 80/20 rule, and really focusing, on your unique genius, on that, 20% that's going to get you 80% of the results, or 80% of the way there. And I think that's really the key, is like, what is this person so good at, way better than anyone else, better than me? What can we focus them on? And then even in such scenarios, I mean, you don't always have that luxury when you're scaling. There may be like, okay, I've got, one person I hired for the warehouse, but they're also part-time customer service. They're also part-time this and that. And these
Right.
things may not be in their unique ability, but it's just the financial reality of your growing business that you can't quite afford to hire those other people yet. So I think you have to be okay as, a business owner and as a manager, that they can get it 80% of the way there. Like, you can't, if no one's ever going to do it quite 100% up to your standards around your own personal unique ability, but a lot of people could get it, around 80% of the way there. And that's one thing. It's like, if it's 80%, I'm like, don't mess with me anymore. It's good. It's good. Let's get it. Let's move the process forward. It's like, keep moving forward. I was talking to someone at the airport this morning. They're talking about like balance in their life. And it's like, no. As an entrepreneur, you don't want balance. You want oscillation. Balance means there's no movement. We always got to keep things moving. That's part of our job. Keep things moving, from, marketing and sales and production, to keep our team members moving, and as far as their development and evolution as human beings. And so, that's part of what I do these days, is just kind of make sure nobody's got any blockages that they need help with.
Right. So you mentioned earlier with your chiropractor business that you never did any marketing, but you had constant referrals. And one of the first conversations you and I had years ago was about referrals in the CrossFit gym that I was running. So my question to you is, how do you create raving fans at FitAid rather than just customers?
Yeah, great question. And when I was a chiro, I did say didn't market. What I meant is, I didn't have to externally market.
Right. You didn't
So
pay for
there
it.
was still many marketing systems that were very purposefully and thoughtfully in place, to make sure that customers have a wow experience. So here's the challenge with most CrossFit gyms, and I think things are getting way better, because I'm constantly traveling all over the place and doing drop-ins. But say 5 years ago, it was not uncommon to drop into a CrossFit gym and you're standing there kind of at the front door and like get an evil eye from whoever was coaching a class or other people in the class, like basically who the F is this person that just showed up and what are they bugging me in my class for. Mm-hmm. And you would just kind of stand there as they kind of go through the motions, and they wouldn't even engage you, or the engagement would be kind of harsh and negative. So I think part of it is like, look, as gym owners, it's a whole skill level is being able to repel people that aren't going to good fit, and that could be a whole conversation, right? That's something that a lot of people don't do. They're welcoming everybody with open arms. At the same time, you don't want to repel people that should be part of your tribe, so you need to have the system set up to create a very customer-centric experience. For example, when I was a chiro, okay, a new patient walked through the door. My staff, Tamara, who still works for us now, she's in one of our customer service leads at FitAid, so she's worked for me for 15 years now. Tamara would stand up and with a big smile say, "Oh, hi, you must be Mr. Hinde, welcome. Oh, I see Ashley referred you in. Ashley's such a great person. We love having her here. Thank you so much. Hold on one sec." She would come around the desk, shake the person's hand with two hands, a double handshake. Say, before we get started on any paperwork, let me give you a quick tour of the office. Can I get you a bottle of water? I had nice Dasani water. Why Dasani? Because it tasted good and it looked good. People go, oh, I'll buy Kirkland water. Well, Kirkland water's cheap, and everyone knows you paid 20 cents for it. Dasani water's nicer. It has higher perceived value. I had it in a beautiful, stainless steel wine cooler, stacked with waters. All around the walls, I had hundreds of professionally done testimonials, basically saying how kick-ass I was and how incredible the results people got. People of note, politicians, sports athletes, right, so on and so forth, influential people in the community. So Tamara would give them a bottle of water after shaking their hand, take them through a full tour of the office. Normally, there would be multiple people in the office at that time, so then everybody's saying how great I was as they were getting the tour around, right? So you think about it, I know what everyone's fears are when the general public, and again, I've been out of the game for a little bit, but what they really used to be going to see a chiropractor, especially for the first time. Oh, I'm going to get cracked. I might have a stroke. It's just like all these fears going through their mind. So what was this whole process about? This whole process was about addressing and calming down their fears with social proof, with reciprocity, with likability, right? All the factors of influence. So if you talk to the average non-CrossFitter on the street, what are their fears? I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to look too bulky. I already got to be in shape in order to do CrossFit. It's too expensive. Whatever it is. Like, if you're not taking care of what the top fears are on day one with new clients, you're losing a large percentage of those people that should be converting and becoming paying clients of yours.
Fuck, man, I'm fired up. I love it. I love that. That is awesome. So you've always given me such solid tactical advice, whether it be over the phone or in person or sitting down with me for some decently long meetings, and you give that to me free of charge. Why do you, and I've seen you do this with countless other people, why do you invest so much of your time into people?
Well, I appreciate that, and part of it is I just love it. I love seeing people succeed. I love being able to provide some value that can potentially make a big difference in people's businesses and lives. And, the other part of it is one of, my mentors, Ben Altadana, he did the same thing for me when I was young. And, he even joined this marketing group for me and loaned me $25,000. He goes, look, it's not cheap. This group has cost $25,000 a year to join, but I think it would be good for you and you'd get a lot of benefit. I'm going to loan you the money, and no paperwork, no contract, no interest. Just pay me back when you can. And he just did that for me. Wow. And that group and some of the advice I got there really changed my life and changed the direction of a failing, basically a failing startup beverage company. So that's fine, I guess.
One thing I notice about you is that even when you first meet someone, you almost like lead with trying to create some kind of value for them. And as I was coming up with these questions earlier, I wanted to talk to you about networking and stuff like that, but I feel like I've kind of figured it out. Like, you just lead with trying to find some way to provide value for people, and it's not some like backhanded slimy thing at all. You're just genuinely looking for how you can help someone, and I see how everyone interacts with you, and they're always happy to see you. Everyone remembers your name. It's a very, very powerful way of communicating with business owners, people in general, etc. It's something that I really look up to, so I appreciate that, man.
Well, I appreciate that comment and feedback, and life is about providing value for others. So if there's opportunities, it's like, I know that I'm really good at a few things and I'm not so good at a lot of things. But those few things, like if I can offer some of that information up, I mean, for people that are receptive, I mean, I'm not I think that's an art of it in and of itself, is not sticking your head in business when people don't want it there. But in certain environments, like when we're together at Shrugged or something, everybody's there for a common theme. They're there to better themselves personally in their business. So knowing that, it's like, okay, I'm really good at these few things, and this is what's really working for us. So on the business end, when people like know their numbers, it's really easy for me to figure out, where the hang up for growth is. Because it's like, you just start going through the numbers, and then, once you can dissect the numbers, you can typically see what's going on within a business. So I would say, for those out there that don't know, what their monthly revenue is, what this year looks like versus last year, what their lifetime value is, how many new members are getting on a monthly basis on average, what's the cost per new member acquisition, what are the conversion rates looking like on all their marketing. If you don't know like that basic stuff, you need to get a hold of that information and learn that and own that, or else you're driving blind. So own those numbers, understand what they mean and their significance to your business, and it's really easy for like someone like me or you or a lot of people that we know, or for you to even study some courses online to like figure out what's going on and move from that 100 members to 150 or 150 to 300 or whatever jump you want to take.
Right. What can you think of what is the most easily accessible kind of resource to learn more about what you were just talking about, metrics?
Oh gosh, I mean, I learned most of it from two sources: podcasts and reading. I mean, last year I did, I think, 50 books. I mean, this year I'll probably pass that up. I mean, Audible, you can get these books with someone's whole life worth of information, their whole study, in some of the classic old school direct marketers. You get these things for like $8, $10 on Audible. I mean, you're commuting every day. If you are, like, you have a choice. You can listen to music, you can listen to sports, or you can educate yourself. My half-hour commute down the ocean into the LifeAid HQ and back up into the mountains where I live, that is my time to catch up on podcasts, Audible, educate myself. I mean, I've gone through like the I Love Marketing podcast. I started at episode 1. I literally didn't listen to anything for like 2.5, 3 weeks until I got to 100.
Good.
I went through 150 episodes in 3 weeks. It's like, okay, just put your mind to it and make it happen. But the information's all out there. We live in an age where information is basically free. It's your choice to consume it and then do something about it.
Absolutely, man. And I want to echo that. The I Love Marketing podcast, even the first few, by the end of the first few, your mind will probably be blown if you don't have any exposure to direct marketing. It just gives you such a great way of looking at the entire system, and it's just a whole paradigm shift on the way to look at marketing and sales. Another great one, obviously, is Barbell Business. It's just so to the point and practical stuff that you can apply for your gym. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go check it out.
Yeah, I was with Joe Polish. I love marketing last week. I'll see him again next week. He's an incredible marketer and probably the best networker on the face of the planet. And, Mike and Marcus and Doug and everybody at Barbell Business, I mean, those guys get it. They get it. That's why I love hanging out with them, because we could just, powwow. And, I mean, they understand kind of this whole game of psychology and are some of the best in the business at applying it.
Yep. So I got a couple more questions before we wrap it up. One thing I always try to do on here is humanize people. I have a lot of very high level athletes or business owners or coaches, and I want to let people know how similar they are, like average Joes and Janes, how similar they are to these people, but also some of the things, the way that these elite people think and act differently. So my question to you is, what is your perception of yourself? Like I'm a confident guy, I have a lot of self-doubt, etc. And then if you spot something that, or if someone else spots it and brings it to your attention, like some kind of character flaw or something that you can work on, what is your process for becoming a better version of yourself and overcoming that?
Yeah, good question. My perception of myself, I think, is something that I learned from my father, and I'm a hard worker. I mean, not just in business and kind of on the idea front, but like when I get home, the rare times that I'm actually home or I have a free weekend, I mean, I'm out chopping wood and digging ditches, and like part of my DNA is just to really work and work hard. I know I should be working smarter, not harder, but I try to, I guess, apply both, work smart and I work hard. As far as character flaw, I think, and this is a complete self-assessment, you probably, Orion or my wife would probably give you the best answers to that, and I'm sure they'd have a much longer list as well. But I think I just got to do a better job at communicating and opening up and being a little more vulnerable. But all that really stems around, communication.
Right. So since that, right, you really learned that at Burning Man in a big way. What is is it just something that and now it's going to get better, or do you have a process for how you hold yourself accountable and how you take actionable steps towards getting better at that?
Yeah. How do I improve on those kind of things? I mean, part of it is like we were talking about earlier on the fear of failure and some of the negative thoughts. It's just when you find yourself repeating a pattern, literally recognizing it and kind of stopping it and then choosing at that second to do something different.
Right.
So if I find myself bottling up, or if I find myself being cold or not communicating what I'm feeling, then I recognize and go, oh, there you are again. There's that little kid kind of bottling up, and I say, do the exact opposite, basically.
Right.
And then and working with people that are experts in these areas, from relationship coaches to other entrepreneurs that are older than me, that have been there, done that, because the struggle is real and the struggle is very similar for all of us.
Right.
And so, not being afraid to access, mentors that, and I would recommend people, that are, physically older than you. They've got more life experience. They've kind of gone through, the stage of life. Because I just got into my 40s. My 40s are much different stage and much different perspective than my 30s or my 20s. And so I'm seeking out people in their, 50s and 60s, and that I know have kind of gone through and have families and have had businesses and understand all those pressures of getting pulled multiple directions, and how life can get so skewed in one direction,
right,
at the detriment of other aspects in your life.
Right. I love how you keep bringing it back to awareness, and I think that's kind of just a universal law for so many different issues in life, business, relationships, etc. If we're unaware of how we're thinking and acting, then we're powerless over it, right? But as soon as we can watch our thoughts, and then we recognize how those thoughts affect our emotions, affect our actions, and then results, then we have true power over our lives.
Absolutely, brother. Amen.
Last thing, what do you want? Do you have anything else you want to tell our listeners?
The parting thought is the value in your business is not in your equipment. It's not in your accounts receivable. It's not in your coaches. The value in your business is in your list. So do everything that you possibly can to build and nurture your list. And don't pass up those opportunities. Like when people fill out a release form on a drop-in or on a free Saturday class, guess what? You have their information now. You have their name, email, phone number, snail mail address. Add that to your database and communicate that with them frequently. The number one reason anyone leaves a business is not because they are dissatisfied with the results that they're getting. The number one reason people leave a business is because they are indifferent. And that's becoming a big challenge right now, especially in CrossFit. When there's 3 CrossFit gyms within, a half a block of you, then that indifference factor can kick in. So how do you battle indifference? Through constant value-added communication.
Value-added communication. So this is not sleazy salesman techniques. This is giving people free information in return for something as simple as their email address, right? And then you continue to give them value, and if they're interested in joining a CrossFit gym, they're probably going to join yours.
It's what you're doing right now with this podcast. Value added, information that you're broadcasting to the world for free.
Exactly. Where can people find you on social media? What are your handles?
Personal handles are Aaron Hinde, AARONHINDE for about all channels. And then, of course, the business, LifeAidBevco.com. And all of our social assets are FitAid, at FitAid, at FocusAid's a fun one too, TravelAid. We got some cool stuff going on there. So each of them have their own handle according to the name of the SKU.
Awesome. And if people want to pick up some of those stoner eye drops, can they just email you directly?
I actually Googled it the other day and I saw some. I think it was on Amazon or something. I also had a video before, like P90X for people with chronic back pain and exercise video. I saw one of those on Amazon too. I was pretty stoked they were still in circulation. It's called Irie Eyes Eye Drops if they want to check it out. Irie Eyes.
Irie Eyes.
Yeah, Irie Eyes.
Hell yeah, man. Hey, dude, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate it so much.
Michael, thank you. It was fun.
Later, buddy.
All right, bud.